I'm tying this Vince Marinaro green drake done Thorax style dry fly on a number 12 fine wire hook. I'm using what I'm calling dark yellow or amber thread. The recipe, which I am using from Mike Valla's book, The Founding Flies, calls for stripped quill for the tail. So I have 3 of these hen feathers, and I'm going to strip the quills off of those, or I'm going to strip the barbs off the quill or the rachis. And so all I have left is the rachis. And I don't have to do the whole feather because I will be trimming those to fit on this particular hook. So it's 2. It calls for a variegated. So this is a variegated hen feather, but I don't know that the rachis is particularly variegated, but I don't notice that the variegation shows particularly strong in the fly photo in Mike Valla's book. So there's a number of unique things about the flies that Vince Marinaro tied. So I have 3 of these then, and I will line up their tips, or at least hold them together. I'm going to clip off all of the fluff from these 3 feathers so I don't have to have that in my way. Try to get those tips lined up. Does give a fairly stiff tail, and one of the things that Vince Marinaro said about tails, he generally didn't think they were necessary, but he did often add them to the flies just to kind of help them stay up on the water, particularly since these are dry flies. And I dropped one of them, had to pick it back up. So I'm going to put the tail about the length of the shank, and I'm holding them a little bit forward as I wrap over them, and that will let the thread torque push them up over the top of the hook shank. I'll wrap forward and clip off the butt ends. Now I want my thread to end up just forward of the halfway mark of the hook bend, where I will tie in the wings. Characteristic of these thorax style flies is that there really is no extra body on them, just the thread material for the body. And then this is one of the other particulars about Marinaro's flies, is that he took wood duck breast feathers and he cut them to shape. So I'm going to peel back the bottom of this feather, the barbs in the bottom, so I can get the striping. I just have to make sure that I don't go too short, but on a size 12 hook, I think this is going to be fine. So I'm just going to hold this against the hook, and I've got plenty of length, although these cut wings were rather large for what we would consider the wing for a fly now. And Vince Marinaro used like a die cutter for cutting the wings, and I'm going to use a pair of scissors, and then I'm going to have to work to get two wings that are very much alike. And this is a little bit harder to do here on the camera. I'm just trying to shape this like a mayfly wing, and he did this because he felt that a cut wing like this was much more true to the shape of the mayfly wing. So I want to again hold that against the hook shank and check it for size. So that looks like it'll be fairly good. When I tie it in, I will tie it so that the shape of the wing splits the two wings. And I'm going to just go off camera and clean this one up and cut the other one. So 2 wings. One of them's a little bit fat yet, but I think we'll go ahead with that. Marinaro did want the wings to be as close to the same size and shape as possible, which is why he used a cutter. So I am laying that against the front of the shank and tying it at an angle, just lashing it in, and I'll pull down on that stem and come around the other side of the feather to try to get it to stand up. So I'm wrapping both directions around that stem, getting that to stand up. And then I'm going to wrap forward up on that stem a little bit, get it up along the shank of the hook before I cut it out. That will help to make sure that the feather doesn't pull out. And I'll take the other one and I'm going to lay it across the shank and tie it in the same way. This one will be leaning this direction. Just kind of lashing it on. And then I want to tie around the other way underneath of it and get it to stand up. And then wrap up over that stem, bend it forward before I clip out the extra. So if I can get that to bend forward and down a little bit better. So then I have those wings split like that. And he wanted them to be closer to the middle of the hook shank or the body of the fly than to the eye of the fly. I'm going to take my thread back behind them now and put on a dubbing thorax. The thorax is supposed to be a creamy yellow natural fur. I'm a little more on the cream side than the yellow side on this fox underfur. This is a red fox, and I've taken this underfur from its lower belly area. Put a little bit of wax on my thread will help that dubbing stick to the thread a little bit better and try to pull out the guard hairs and spin a noodle on to my thread, and I may have to add some more. So this is called a thorax style, and part of that means that the thorax is very large compared to the rest of the body. So I'm going to have to add a little bit more. So I want to build up a good thorax on this, and the principle here, according to Marinaro, was that the heavy thorax gave the hackle a good nesting ground. So even a little bit more, I think. And this is really more creamish than yellowish. But I think I'm within the bounds of the colors that I see in the recipe for this fly. Okay, I'm happier with that, I think. It's probably pretty good thorax. I've got some guard hairs. I'll try to pull those out. Get the ones out from in front of the eye. The hackle is badger, and badger, when we're talking hackle, is a color. It is a lighter barb on the ends with that dark strip down the middle. I'm going to give this hackle a crew cut. So I've just pulled down on the hackle barbs at the base butt end and clip out the hackles right close to the barb or to the rachis, and that gives me short little barbs there to catch with my thread. And then another principle with Marinaro's flies was that he used a criss-cross hackle. So I'm going to just take my hackle around, since I tied it in front. I'm going to take it around, and then I'm going to wind behind the wings and wrap down, and then forward in front of the wing. And I'll wrap down, and another one behind the wing, and come down and go in front of the wing in a crisscross pattern. And then I will finish that off. I'll tie over the tip of that hackle feather. And then I'm going to take my half hitch tool, which is a pen, and go ahead and just put one half hitch. Oh, came loose there. Just put one half hitch to pull back the fibers on that hackle feather. Go ahead and pull everything back and then wrap in front. And then I can clip out. Just take my scissors and set it against that feather and push, so that I'm cutting just the feather and not the hackle fibers. And then I will take and put another half hitch on that. That makes sure that I'm pulling the fibers away from the eye. I'm going to go ahead and wrap. I've got a fairly clean eye, so I can go ahead and just take my thread and put a little bit of a head on that. And then I will throw a couple of double half hitches, so I'm winding the thread around my half hitch tool twice and just pulling it off the end, and that'll be my knot. So I'll do a couple of those. And I can take my scissors and push them against the thread to cut it out. Take a look at that. I'm not unhappy with that. I think it picks up the spirit of the Vince Marinaro flies. My go-to head cement is a diluted Goop. So I just stick a needle in my jar, pick up a drop that on the head. It looks a little bit darker right now while it's wet, but it will dry clear. And then I want to make sure that my eye is clean, so I will pass a Hackle tip through it to make sure that it is tippet ready.